That's nice. So welcome to today's astrology study group. And I've got an interesting topic, I think. See how much we can just branch into. I started out looking at critical degrees and started looking at the 29 and the 0 degrees of every sign. And we'll look at something in a minute. But when I started opening that makes sense, looking at a time when something is changing. So we're going to look at that a little bit more. And then I started to find what they called critical degrees, anaretic degrees. And there were other precarious degrees in each sign. I remember studying that a long time ago and kind of lost that. And then it's come surfaced back. So I want to be digging into that. And I've got a nice little list of things we'll look at. So if you have your chart, get it. Otherwise, you can look back at this and I'll see if I can send you guys a PDF, whoever's here, of that so you can look at it in your chart. So without any further ado, I'm going to share my screen with you. And let's go with this first, this one. All right. Yay, everything's working here today. It's always fun starting up something. You not only do you have your material, you have all the technical things when you finally get there. You're like, okay, now I got to think about that stuff. But here we are. Critical and anaretic degrees. And critical degrees, we're going to start calling it the 29th degree of every sign. Classical critical degrees are also 0, 13, and 26 of any cardinal sign, 8 or 9 and 21, 22 of fixed signs, and 4 and 17 of mutable signs. But we'll get into them a little bit further. Okay, these are considered sensitive and sometimes strengthening points. If a natal planet is found in a critical degree, that planet is thought to be emphasized and to assume more power in the life of the native due to its placement. So then anything, if that planet now is in a easy aspect, it will lend itself easier to that critical degree. If it's a harsh aspect, if you have a square or opposition or a semi-square, then it's going to add some more tension to an already highlighted spot. So sometimes the highlighting of something can be fun and sometimes it can get overstimulating. So that's kind of what we're looking at. It's like to highlight, it's like, oh, me, you're paying attention to me. Oh, or everybody's paying attention to you all the time and always on you. Then you're just like overstimulated. So where is that in this mix? So that's kind of what we have to keep in mind. So when you see one in your chart, if you're looking over, keep that in mind as well, especially when we get into some of the precarious ones, because if it's in a negative spot, but you have a positive flow, then that kind of, it says something else than a negative spot and a negative spot. And well, I'll just wait till we get there to say this about that. Let me just go on with this. Okay, so that being said, many astrologers consider 0 and 29 degrees of any sign critical degrees as well. The 0 and 29 degrees are more crisis-oriented points, especially in predictive work. All right, let's go on here. If a natal planet is found at 29 degrees of any sign, also known as the anaretic degree, there can be some real issues with decision-making in that part of the personality represented by the energies of the planet. The native may evaluate and reevaluate the situations before making a move one day, and the next day jump into action without listening to him or herself. For example, if Mars is at 29 degrees, the native may devise many plans of action, worry excessively about the possible actions and different routes to take, and then execute a spontaneous action that is contrary to the decision. I've seen many people with this. Now I know what to go look for. Oh, do you have something there at that spot, especially Mars? In this case, that's funny. All right. Also known as the anaretic degree, defective vision is noted with this degree. It's the weakest point in a sign. It represents tired and often showing more of the next sign than the sign it's in. The planet and house placement is always getting ready to make a change. And the 29th degree adds a decision-making complication to that house or side. Able to see both sides of an issue, there's an oscillation between one view and the other, and a struggle to make any decision at all. Decisions are put off, or there's a continuous re-evaluation due to new information. At the end of his rope, the individual may make a quick decision simply to do something, but this takes on characteristics of too much or too little. Metaphorically, he may dive into the pool before checking to see if it has water. All right, a placement of a planet at the 29th degree in a house automatically makes the ability to manifest the characteristics of that house structure more fuzzy, and interaction with people of that house more vague and less decisive. The sun in the 29th degree often causes a major career change in midlife. This position can slow down career success because of poor decision-making skills. And then this also, when we're looking at progress charts in particular, if you have the sun progressed to 29 degrees, that year is going to be it's actually kind of a 3-year buildup. So it's the year before, the year, and then the year after. So that whole little thing, especially with that 29th year coming into that is, it's the end of that cycle. You're still in the game, but you haven't changed yet. It's like moving. You're ready to move out of the house, ready to move into the new house, but you're not out of the old house yet. And you still have got to pack up everything, and you still have lingering things and emotional attachments and the whole bit on the old place. And you're so ready to move on to the next that it just clouds being there. That's kind of like how that is. And when we are progressing through something, especially your sun, it's going to progress. It's going to take 30 years to progress through a whole sign. So if you were born at 0 degrees, say, of Aries, I'm just going to make it real easy. By the time, you're turning 30, when it's going to go into 0 degrees Taurus, that late 29 years, you're coming into 30, and then is going to be that time of change. So wherever it is in your progress chart, whenever you hit that 29th degree of something, that's going to be a precarious year. And we should always watch those. And then look at the other planets that are in the 29th degree and see, it's like if you've got Mercury at 29 degrees, then there might be a whole mental shift from one side to the other. If you say you had 29 Taurus and you're going into Gemini, that whole slow digesting, thinking about it, solid structure might just start to be thrown out the window. You want to be spontaneous and you don't want to think about structure. That might start to change when that happens. So this is just that precarious placement. All right. Let's talk about these two. The Aries point degrees. That's like the beginning of each sign. So we can kind of think about it that way, that the 0 degrees is sort of like the Aries point of each new sign. So a true Aries point is 0 degrees Aries. That's like Aries point. The 0 degrees of the 4 cardinal signs, Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, are all referred to the Aries point degrees. This beginning degree of the cardinal signs has a similar connotation to the angles of a chart and is an indicator of eventful times when occupied by a planet or founded on the house cusp. These points are indicative of a spectacular outrush of energies. There is frequently an involvement with the world at large. Outsiders, or those who are considered an expert in some area, become involved in one's personal matters. They're right on those angles. Ramification of events often have a domino effect in each personal area of life, as represented by these 4 cardinal points. Personal, which is the 1st house, family on the 4th, relationships on the 7th, and status on the 10th. Those with the planet in this degree in the natal chart often have some influence in worldly affairs, or at some point they come into public view. As such, the degree is also associated with fame. There's no orb involved. It's like 0 degrees. So if you have 0 degrees Aries on the 10th house, that's going to be that initial Aryan, whatever, in that area of life of status. So you can think, oh, okay. Or what if you have 0 degrees Libra on the 7th house? Then there's like a whole big thing around relationship there. All right, where are we going here? Okay, so that was a little bit from Celestial. She had Celestial, isn't that a great name? Celestial. She's got great books. This one is a good book that she has here. Eclipses, Predicting World Events and Personal Transformation. All right, let's move on. Critical degrees. The critical degrees are 0, 13, 26 of cardinal signs, 9, 21 fixed signs, 4 and 7 of mutable signs. Now we also included 8, 9, and 22 of the fixed signs. When a critical degree falls on a house cusp, it shows stress and climax. The matters of the houses ruled and occupied by a planet in one of the critical degrees is grave, serious, and climactic. Critical degrees show a cosmic restraint. Natives will experience obstruction and frustration here, depending, of course, on the planet involved and the aspects they're making. So until they learn to surrender their own will in this particular area of life, by denying satisfaction in external circumstances, natives are forced back upon their own resources. They have to find satisfaction within themselves. These degrees are neither benefic nor malefic. They deny external satisfaction, but increase self-reliance. Let me read that again. They deny external satisfaction, but increase self-reliance. This is where it's turning somebody onto their own divinity. It's like, yes, you love that other person, but it's not all about what they do for you. You know, it's like they're turning on a certain part of you that you need to know about anyway. Okay, there is an obstinate struggle here against hampering and isolating circumstances, usually self-created, and also a great reserve of fortitude and strength. The strength is especially apparent when a planet or angle comes to conjunction with a critical degree by progression. Okay, so this is what I was saying, like if your sun, say the sun comes into 13 degrees Aries, it progresses to that, or any other planet, you know, going into that area. Except for the progressed moon, whose effect is much weaker because it moves so fast. There's usually a preceding month or so of personal limitation and frustration. Then within a few weeks of the time of that progression is exact, the crisis occurs. So say your sun, you know, is moving into that, say 13 degrees Aries. That was one of them, or 26 Aries, whatever. As it gets closer to that exact, you know, this is what we can look at, right? In those few weeks, right before that progression is exact, and then the crisis, and then the situation calls for transcendence, moving up to a new level of grasp and control. Now, let me just say one thing about transits and these kind of things so that they're not feared or fated. A lot of this, you know, these things that we're looking at in astrology is to help our soul growth. This is all about spiritual evolution. This is not just fated events happening to us. These are different journeys that the soul takes to learn about itself and to have God experience itself through us. So if a square is limiting in your chart, then you need to see where those limitations would be beneficial to you and not see it as so limiting. It's like, okay, if I still have to wrap my head around squares, and it gets easier when I'm not in one. And then when I'm in one, I really learn a little bit more about it, but it just narrows down things so you can maybe focus a little bit. So we sometimes have to rethink stuff. Okay, it's like, yeah, it's closing this door. Yeah, it's making this hard. Yeah, it's doing that. But that's what builds structure and character. If there are no boundaries, then things get too nebulous. So at that point, you have to think of healthy boundaries, maybe when you're going through a tough square. Let me just put it that way. Okay, let's go on a little bit here. Okay, transcendence. Okay, the situation calls for transcendence, moving up in a new level of grasp and control. The real significance of these critical moments in life is often properly understood only in retrospect over a period of a few months. Like, what WTF just happened? Whoa, okay. Generally, your critical planets and angles reveal not only where you fume, but also where your greatest potentials lie. They are your true points of of touch with the depths of your own humanity. Okay, so, okay, this is good. All right, now looking at kind of how we progress through different degrees. In the natal chart, planets or points at 0 degrees of a sign take a stance that neither indulges in or embraces very pure, undiluted nature of that sign. There's a fresh, unstudied quality to a planet at this degree. Something moves right into that 0 degrees. It's like, wow, whoa. Some of the most familiar prima facie traits linked to that sign will be obvious in the person's nature, but the sign's true essence and the challenges that the planet must face and embrace on its journey are just being discovered and are yet to be mastered. Simply put, there's a new language to learn and much work to be done. So embarking on this voyage, the planet at 0 degrees appears highly eager to encounter that which it will become. It's the new thing. It's the new house you're moving into. It's the new thing. So a planet that, you know, is at that 29th degree is just so ready to go on to the next. And one that is just into the 0 degrees is just like, okay, I'm here. Ah, wow. And you just start to open up in that. You don't even have a taste of it totally. All right, the middle degrees, planets or points in the middle degrees from 14 to 16 appear to be truly entrenched in that sign's raison d'etre. When a cardinal sign, the planet point is fully engaged in the process of moving forward and encountering challenge and conflict in the mid degrees. All right, let me read that again. When in a cardinal sign, okay, it's in the process of moving forward and encountering challenge and conflict. In the mid fixed degrees, the planet is at its most permanent, solid, and durable, but sometimes becomes stagnant or stuck. So that's one of the reasons why that's an interesting spot as well.
Yeah.
Okay, in mutable signs, it is the most versatile and diverse, but precarious, scattered, and prone to fluctuation and instability. See if that's the same. So if it's a cardinal area, then it could start to slow it down. Cardinals want to move and get things going, and then it could slow it down a little bit. If a planet is if it's a fixed area, it's more fixed, so it could also become more stagnant and stuck. And then the mutable, it could help maybe ground it because it's so scattered. All right, the final degree, we known as that final degree, which we just talked about. All right, let's see. What else I want to get to? This is pretty much the same. Okay, we'll read this. Whereas a 0 degree planet is taking initial steps on the road ahead to envision, discover, and create its journey, the 29 degree planet senses inevitability, irrevocable. I can't say the word. I gotta say that one. Irrevocable. I'm not gonna say that one. And finality. That was not coming from me today. The end of a familiar path. But a planet at the final degree has a knowingness about it. It's a seasoned player, very skilled in that sign, having earned its stripes. Those of us with natal planets at 29, although we're equipped to deal with issues linked to that sign, we likely encounter some of the most challenging facets of that planet's in-sign meaning in our lives. And again, not only natally, but progressed. And we'll all get planets, you know, if we live more than 30 years old, you'll get at least one that's 29 degrees. There may also be a desire to understand what has already happened that cannot be undone. A lifelong mission to resolve and come to terms with those issues which we seem to have been saddled with at birth. All right, we said that, it adds strength. Okay, in progressions, okay, this one's interesting. In progressions, when, for example, the sun enters the 29th degree, the native's year can be crisis-oriented. If the sun progresses to 9 degrees, 29 degrees of, say, Libra, for example, the sense of urgency and crisis can surround relationships. Divorce or jumping into new partnerships rather blindly may be the result of this urgency. If the sun progresses to 29 degrees of Virgo, a big change might be made in work. Generally, decisions made at the time of the 29th degree can be hasty. Because the progressed moon moves the fastest of the planets, we encounter more anaretic degrees of the moon than we do other planets' luminaries. The secondary progression of the moon makes a complete circle of the chart and signs approximately every 28 years. So we encounter 12 anaretic degrees of progressed moon per 28 years, every 2.5 years or so. How nice. All right, we talked about this. All right, now this is what's interesting. So this is where we want to maybe look at your chart. Actually, let me read this first before we get it. The next part will be, okay, so 0 to 1 degrees of Taurus is always permanent in prediction for good or bad. So anything at those early degrees of Taurus is pretty steady. 0 to 1 degrees of all the other fixed signs here is long lasting, of course. That would make it more, just said there. Fixed signs signify permanent stability and things that last. What has begun will more than likely last, like in prediction. 0 to 1 degrees of the mutable signs are beginnings subject to change. Mutable signs always signify adaptability, restlessness, and change. What has begun is subject to change in prediction. 29 degrees of Pisces is permanent ending in predictive astrology. So again, like if you have a progressed sun or your progressed moon at the 29 degrees of Pisces, it's the end of the end. Whatever is going through that space, that resonance, it's a finality. This is what's so fascinating about this. All right. Okay, as is 29 degrees of Taurus. 13 and okay, we talked about this. 13 and 26 degrees of the cardinal signs are important. The affairs ruled by the planets and the affairs ruled by the houses, ruled by the planets or by the house, these degrees are pointing to something of the occurring in the chart owner. Yeah, we know that. All right, we talked about these. 9 and 21 degrees of Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius, a fixed sign, same as the above, with the tendency to misfortune. 21 degrees of Scorpio is definitely loss, natally, or in prediction, the loss is not always negative. So it might be just getting rid of stuff, depending on how you look at it. 21 degrees Scorpio. All right, 4 and 17 of the mutable signs are similar to the 13 and 26 of the cardinal signs mentioned above. All right, here's now we start getting interesting. 15 degrees of Leo is one of the worst degrees in the zodiac, either natally or in prediction. Prominent in the charts of serial killers, felons serving life sentences, hard luck, etc. Helen Keller, blind and deaf, had her chart co-ruler, Mars, at 15 degrees of Leo, along with no air signs. So air signs are communication. Thought that was interesting. 25 degrees of Leo is violent. Many people in prison for violent crimes have their chart rulers on this degree. Also, this is not a good degree for a planet to be on in predictive charts. So like, your progress chart. Problems will result from this placement according to the affairs and rulers under house that's in. This is a very strong degree of alcoholism. Many who are chronic alcoholics have prominent planets at 25th degree of Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, or Aquarius. Especially strong if Neptune is involved. So say they have their sun at 25 degrees Scorpio square Neptune, or semi-square or inconjunct or something. There's some or opposition, so that might make some interesting. And then depending on what well, if there's others involved too. Okay. 15 degrees of Taurus, Scorpio, and Aquarius are also unfortunate, but not to the extent as 15 degrees of Leo, one of the worst degrees of the zodiac. Okay. 16, 17, 18, 19, 22, and 25 degrees of Taurus are all degrees of violence. Now I'm going to check these too. I came upon this whole thing here today. I was putting this together. So I have a lot of charts and a lot of database. So I'm going to just start looking at some of these and then just kind of look up with other charts of interesting people and see if I see what I see. So I will report back about that. But I thought it was very interesting. 9 degrees of Gemini, degree of homicide. 17 degrees of Gemini, degree of homicide. 6 degrees of Cancer, possible physical disability, and to a lesser extent, 6 degrees of Libra, Capricorn, and Aries. So 6 degrees of the cardinal signs, especially if the planet occupies the first house. 6 degrees of Leo or Aquarius is bad for eyesight. Now I'm wondering how much orb is within this, if it's right on or if it's, I would imagine it's right on exactly. 12 degrees of Leo, a degree of beauty. 9 degrees of Virgo and Pisces are known as fatal degrees. Body in the ditch degree, or degrees of suffering. Ooh, 9 of Swords or something. 9 degrees of Pisces is one of the worst degrees in the zodiac. Okay, I have to make sure we highlight that one. 9 degrees of Sagittarius, a warrior degree, and also a degree of homicide. And I'm not sure, you know, again, I just found this today. I have to kind of get into this a little bit more. What do I mean by that? Is it just that, or is it more symbolic? We'll find out. 22 degrees of all signs is bad, either natally or in prediction. And then this is by Art of Predictive Astrology, Forecasting Your Life, life events.
I have 2 in 22.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
That's nice.
Which ones? Excuse me.
I think it was Jupiter and Pluto, maybe. I don't know the planets when I look at them. I'll have to go back and tell you.
Yeah. Again, this is some stuff that's new, and I found some of these years ago, and I just kind of found some of these today. So I'm going to just kind of look it up and then just see where that, what and why that would be. What else do I want to find here? Okay. And okay, got that here. Now let's go over to, stop share, and then I want to start share again. Okay. So I think we got this. Let me make it a little larger. Again, I don't want these things to seem totally fatalistic, because it's not. It's just things that we need to learn, and this is interesting slices. So if they're saying that they're bad luck or different degrees, that's just kind of context. But what we can take is like a critical degree, a critical, what, you know, something is in crisis, or crisis is really change, and change, you know, is life. You can't have a day life. Everything is in constant change. So if we can embrace that, you know, if we know that that is that way, then it sometimes makes a little more sense. And sometimes it brings stuff on. Like I'll notice some people, how can I say this? Sometimes your energy mixes with other people, and it just kind of, it's disruptive or clashing. You seem to sometimes bring certain things out in certain people, or without even meaning to. Sometimes you force stuff to happen. So I think that might be sometimes critical degrees. That might be something in how stuff works. It just, that energy just precipitates out pretty quick. It's right there on the surface. So critical, again, is just a matter of a perspective. Sometimes, you know, again, crisis is necessary to get something done. You know, it's like sometimes creating, a need is that rush of it, but then how much of a crisis is steeped in emotion, and how much is just like, hey, we need to do it, hurry up, come on, chop chop. So that's where I would kind of think about that. You know, where in the Zen stick are you? If you've got some of that edginess, like let's call it edginess in your chart, then that may be more of a passionate, you know, like immediate need, as opposed to something with nothing like that, and that's real boring and laid back. Sometimes that type of person, I mean, they need a break from certain things karmically, but that type of person is just maybe a stable, maybe you don't even know that that person's around a lot of times. Whereas then there's the people that have that edginess that make things happen, that precipitate stuff out. So that's what I want to say about those degrees, being able to precipitate things out a little bit more than not. All right, so let's move on to kind of how we look at these things and how we can go about finding and using this stuff. So we're going to look at the eclipse chart in a couple of days. And what I like to do is you can look up on the internet or get a book, and it has all the dates of the eclipses. So we have one in a couple of days on June 10th. And this one, we just had one a couple of weeks ago. We had a lunar eclipse. This one's a solar eclipse. And stuff here, where's the degree? Okay, this one is at 19 degrees Gemini. So it's 19 degrees 47 minutes. But what you need to do, if you're going to do it, we want to look for where that is in your chart. And this is just the chart of the day, of the actual time. I tried to get it as close as I could. So we can see, where is that? We can see that lining up over here, that new moon lining up over here. Oh, I can see. So we see that the new moon, when they're together, it's a new moon. It's zero moon. You can't see it anymore. It's dark. And look at there. And I just picked the time. It'd be on the East Coast, 6:41 in the morning. Just about. Look at, I got it pretty close. Maybe 6:42. 19 degrees, and look at 41 and 47 minutes. So it's like right there at that time. So when you look in a chart, we can look and see where the phase of the moon was by how it's progressing. So we know that now the moon is going to just be like a few seconds here, and it'll progress, move over the sun. I was just thinking, I'll show you how that, let me just show you, kind of cool. Let me change that. Let me just make it, this is always so small when I do it here. Let me just make it about a couple minutes later. Still got to do it a little more. Bear with me a second. Let's go. I want it to definitely be after. Let's go. 59. Let's make it closer to 7 o'clock. Done. And let's see if the moon passes it. There. Now the moon passed it. Look. So not too much longer than that. It was, what did I have it? Maybe barely 20 minutes, 17 minutes later. The moon now passed over the sun. See, it's now 50 minutes. Both 19 are still going to be there. The sun is going to be at 19 all day. But the moon just passed over it. And then it'll just be moving on in, further into Gemini and then into Cancer later that day, or, that was in the morning. So maybe later that day. Moon moves about 13 degrees every day. So that'll be moving into Cancer. Anyway, just wanted you to see how that could pass, and just how a few minutes of time in something can change something. So this is that eclipse time. And what you need to do is to look and see where in your chart 19 degrees Gemini is. See if there's any planets or anything there. See if there's anything aspecting it. If you don't have anything there, we'll see if you have anything opposite of there. Is there's things in Sagittarius that would be opposing that spot? Is there anything, it's like it's mutable. So then go look over and see if either other of the mutable signs are squaring that spot, either Virgo or Pisces. See if you have anything at 19. I would look at 18 too, because anything getting close to that is still pre-climactic. Anything after is kind of, even though it's close, it's anti-climactic. The moment before the orgasm is different than the moment after. So same thing with astrology. All right. Then you go again, look and see what's ease and trine. Do you have anything? Just go look at anything around that degree and then go figure out what it is. It's like, oh, I got a sextile, or oh, it's a square, or oh, it's a trine. Oh, I got a trine and a square. Okay. And then that will let you know what kind of energies that's affecting you. And what house is it in? Okay, say this person, let's just say this is an actual person. I wish there was something at that other, oh, look at here. Just as something pops out at me. Mars at 29 degrees. It's in a critical degree of Cancer. Now this is kind of interesting. So you got to look at everything kind of in context. And this is how, again, we look at a chart. You start looking at one thing and then you find things that pop out at you. So we just, of course, we're talking about the critical degrees, and here's Mars right sitting there about ready to change, and it can't wait. So this is going to be a good one for Mars. You know, Mars does not want to be in watery Cancer. So it gets to go into a sister sign of Leo, in which will also bring way more enlivening type energy to us all. We'll all get much more done because Mars will be in Leo. But we got to watch. Okay, we should do, this will be interesting. Let's predict this. When is Mars going to be at 15 degrees Leo? Let's look it up. So we see. Okay, when is that? So Mars, we zipping along. July. Oh no, let's see. July 6th. So, you know, coming into the 4th of July weekend, or the time, when is it? It's gonna, the 4th of July this year is on a Sunday. It's at 14 degrees, Monday 14, and Tuesday 15 degrees. So I predict that whole time will be tense. There'll be some shit happening. I gotta put it that way. You know, now that we're looking at that. And then let's also look when the sun will be there, because that might be a kind of a 1-2 punch. Okay, the sun will be there on the 7th of August. So let's mark these dates down. Let's actually, while I'm talking about it, 7th of August is sun moving into Leo. Sorry, the 15 degrees, that bad one that they say. 7th August. And then what did I say? July 6th for Mars moving into that critical degree, that 15, that bad degree of Leo. So this is one way that we want to look at this. So we can see a few things, and we might note that this might be a precursor here. This Mars might be just, you know, as it's like right at the end, let's note what's happening in a couple of days. There's already a lot of stuff happening. I mean, we have, and I can't say the word too much because I'll probably be banned. It's just these fact checkers and all this really catch these words, but the person that was telling us for months and months and months about masks and about things, little nerdy guy on TV all over the place. Last name starts with an F. There's a lot of media coming out, a lot of emails coming out with a lot of information. So I've looked at that chart too, and that's pretty interesting. But anyway, needless to say, this is happening, this kind of stuff right now, and this is starting to topple and change the tide of a lot of things. If we, you know, look at this astrologically, this is just a premonition of things happening. Now, we also know that the 14th, which is 4 days after this, I just have to show you, we've got this second square going on. And you can see that it's pretty close here between the structure, Saturn, here at 13 degrees Aquarius, almost totally square Uranus here, 12 degrees Taurus. Look at it, this is like almost 13. It's like 54 minutes. So you see how quickly this is going to move in, and just they're 4 days away. And then see, Saturn is going retrograde, so that's why it's slowing down, going less, and then this is going forward. So the 13 degrees is getting lesser, getting closer to the 12, and the 12 is getting closer to 13. So that's this is the second hit where the Saturn is now retrograded, and they're making that perfect square as it moves into orb there. So it's stuff is happening now. Things are heating up now. You know, when we're 2 days away from this yet, we're on the 8th, but just so you see how this stuff is clicking in. And then what else is going on? I gave you those dates of those other two. Okay. Now, let me tell you something else. So we're looking at, okay, we started with the 19 degrees. I think we're doing good on time. We started with this eclipse. So what we can do then is you go get something, you know, that that has all the eclipses for like the rest of the century, or not the rest of the century, the rest of this time period, maybe the next 10 years or something. And then go see where those are in your chart and when they're going to be. So I'll just give you the next few just coming up this year, and we'll talk about this here, but we've got this one now. And then we talked about eclipses before, how they occur in pairs, and then they'll go, they'll flip from one side to the other. Like 2 weeks ago, we had the, where is it? Opposite of Gemini, we had the lunar eclipse in Sagittarius. So now we flipped over to Gemini. The one before that, the one we had in December, was Sagittarius, and the one we had in November was Gemini. Okay, so they do this little vacillation, and then they go on to the next sign, the next area. And the next one we're going to have after this one will be in November, and that one will be at 27 degrees Taurus. Now, I think that one was one of those odd degrees. I have to look at that again, 27 Taurus. And then you want to see where that's at in your chart. And then the one in December will be 12 Sagittarius. And then next year, April, which we start again, we'll have 10 Taurus. And then May will be 25 Scorpio. And then we go, that's it for the summer ones. And then in the fall, we have 2 degrees Scorpio. And then in November 8th, we have 16 Taurus. And then in April 23, we have 29 Aries. That should be an interesting one, because that one is in an anorectic degree, a critical degree. So that one, let me just state it again, that one will be April 20th, 2023, and that will be a solar eclipse. And that will be at 29 Aries, 50 minutes. So that one is going to be pretty extreme. Let's just put something on that as well. Let's just say that one is going to be a humdinger. And the thing about the eclipses are, they make patterns and resonances at the 3 and 6 month intervals. So we would want to see then when the moon moves into 29 Aries, when there's different things that move into that point where the resonance is. And then we've got, I'll just tell you the rest of them I have here. May 2023, 14 Scorpio, and then October 2023, 21 degrees Libra, and then the 28th of October 2023, 5 degrees Taurus. All right, so those are the ones just through the next several years to 2023. But then I would urge you to again look back, go look back at those, and then go see if any of those were on something that you have. Just say this is you, a person. It's like something was at 20 degrees Gemini, and then you go, oh gosh, that was just right on my Mercury, and I had my mind was blah blah or something that year, whatever, it's like, and then you can see it, well, if it's in Pisces here, well, that would make it a little more dull. And then maybe it was opposing Neptune, and you were just disillusioned by something. Maybe you got sucked into some scheme or something. I'm just making some hypothetical to how you can kind of trace that down or go get some ahas on some of the things that happened back in your life. All right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, see if we have any questions on that. Chat, or unmute yourself if you have any questions on that. Otherwise, I'll recap a little bit. And I'll just give you that screen to look at while I'm recapping. There. All right, so the critical degrees, again, look for 0 degrees something, 29 degrees something, and then some of those other ones that were specific. Again, I'll send you the PDF of that. And if anybody wants to just listen back to this, anybody can also message me and get that PDF. So look for where some of those things are natally. And then if you're into progressed or progressions, we can look at them each year, and you can see where things are progressing. You might look at your sun, for instance. It's like each year the sun goes a degree more, and your ascendant. So you can look at those and see when any of those are going to hit any of those precarious degrees, to give you a heads up about that year and that energy and how to handle it. Again, we don't want to see things as fatalistic. We just need to see the energy involved and take the right precautions. If you have to drive in the rain, you're going to do it differently than if it's not raining. But you want to know it's raining or it's going to rain, so you can maybe plan more time and drive slower. So this is the same way with astrology. It's not like you go, oh, it's going to rain. I can't drive anywhere. I can't do it. Oh my God. You know, we don't want to do that. We go, well, I guess I got to leave 15 minutes early because I would expect, you know, traffic to be slower, and I need to, you know, you take those precautions. You know, you're going up and down mountains. Well, is it the time of year that could, you know, get snow? Do I have adequate tires? You know, these are the types of things that we need to pay attention to. And when we don't, that's when we get in trouble. That's when some of these things are worse for the person, is when you don't heed that warning and pay attention to it. So that's how we use astrology. That's why you look at your birth chart and you see that your potential, and then as things progress, how it's going to progress. I'll give you one more quick little thing on that. We can see things like with health. If I'm seeing somebody that maybe they're born, say, with the sun in the 6th house, and maybe it has some afflicting aspects. Maybe it's being squared by Mars. Maybe it's got some of Pluto afflictions, a couple of other things. And then maybe that child then is sickly. Maybe there's some Gemini involved. Maybe the Mars is in Gemini, or the sun is in Gemini, which I'm thinking of maybe lungs. So maybe that person might be born with asthma or bronchitis. But then as they get older, that sun progresses away from Pluto or away from Mars, or that inflammation or that irritation, and they don't have that anymore. Or the sun, you know, moves out of the 6th house. And then it moves into a good aspect with Mars, and all of a sudden they gain strength, or they gain, you know, they work through that ailment or illness. So this is how we look at those things. And, you know, a mother, you know, you see that your kid or something, then you make it a big deal to maybe have a clean environment, you know, have things that maybe don't smoke around the child. Maybe have things that, you know, promote healthy lungs, make sure there's enough vitamin A in the diet, you know, things you would want to, you know, you see that weakness, so you want to reinforce it so it doesn't get worse. If the child has an occasional cough or gets some susceptibility, it's different than having bronchitis and being on steroids and things like that, inhalers. So this is how we can use some of these things and, you know, put the snow tires on the car if you're going to drive through the mountains. All right. So that being said, I'm going to let you have fun with looking at these, I don't want to say anorexic degrees. A lot of people say anorexic, but it's anoretic and critical degrees, and making the most of those and using crisis for opportunity. All right. You guys have a really good time with your astrology chart, and we'll see you next week in the Style Study Group. Take care. Bye.